with that, I will hand it over to Janet and Jim, and a warm welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Troy.
Thanks, Troy. We are going to try something new this evening, as we've been working with our whole food plant-based lifestyle and attempting to live that lifestyle. Many issues have come up for us. We started to do it for our health, and we saw a remarkable recovery in both of our health. But we began to, our awareness began to open to the environment and what animal agriculture is doing to the environment, and also to the compassion towards animals. And we've been opened up to that. We started this lifestyle 10 years ago, and it started with my having a triple bypass followed by 3 stents, and then going on a whole food plant-based diet. And now I am off all medications, and we are in our late 60s, and we are very active in our physical lives, biking, running, snowshoeing, etc., without any adverse difficulty. So we've benefited by this lifestyle, so we started to share it. Today we rewatched a movie called Forks Over Knives, and I know many of you have watched it, but by watching it again a few years later, we really were buoyed by the fact that our lifestyle is in fact saving both of our lives, and it was really neat to watch again. So it is still available on the Forks Over Knives website, and also through Tubi, and the service Tubi, T-U-B-Y. And I encourage you just to watch it again, because it's just great, and it'll reinforce what you're doing. But tonight we're veering off and going into a little bit of a spiritual perspective. We're looking at what most of the major religions are talking about with regards to whole food plant-based lifestyle. And so this is going to take a bit of a, let's say, a spiritual perspective today on whole food plant-based. And we believe that our spirits have been opened as well as a result of following this lifestyle. So Troy, if you could let me share my screen here.
Go ahead, Jim.
So we're going to be talking today about food, spirituality, and a plant-based nutrition lifestyle. First of all, let us introduce ourselves. Janet is a retired registered nurse, and she's certified in plant-based nutrition with eCornell. Her email address is below, and we encourage you to contact us by email with any questions that you have, because we have tons of resources, more than we can share in an evening presentation. I'm retired, and my whole reason for being is that I'm a 10-year cardiac illness survivor and a follower of a whole food plant-based lifestyle, and I credit my lifestyle with whole food plant-based. And there's my email address as well. I guess you could tell the year we were born in our email addresses. Again, we put the disclaimer forward that says that, in effect, you may follow this lifestyle and require to be off some of your medications because you may be taking too much. Our purpose is to reduce our dependence on medications. And so we ask that you contact your physician when you're going through this lifestyle change in order to ensure that they are following what you're doing, and also that you're under the right medication. We're going to start with a hymn, and on the one side is taken from the scripture Galatians in the fruits of the Spirit, and it's interesting that the fruits of the Spirit are all food tonight. So anyway, Troy, can you play the hymn for us, please?
For everyone born, a place at the table. For everyone born, clean water and bread. A shelter, a space, a safe place for growing. For everyone born, a star overhead. And God will lives when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. For woman and man, a place at the table, revising the roles, deciding to share. With wisdom and grace, dividing the power. For woman and man, a system that's fair. And God will and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, God will love justice, justice and joy. For young and for old, a place at the table, a voice to be heard, a part in the song. The hands of a child, and hands that are wrinkled. For young and for old, the right to belong. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice. For queer and for straight, a place at the table. For trans and for gay, a welcoming place. A rainbow of race and gender and color. For queer and for straight, the chalice of grace. And God will delight when we are creators of justice, joy, compassion and peace. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice. For everyone born, a place at the table, to live without fear and simply to be. Speak out, to witness and worship. For everyone born, the right. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice and joy.
Food is a global need for life and health and for all beings. Our food choices are ingrained and intertwined with our emotional, social, cultural, environmental, and spiritual value systems. Each part of creation is connected and interacts with the other, air, water, and soil, with all living creatures. Food production is a major contributor that either promotes health or diminishes it. A plant-based lifestyle compassionately promotes a healthy environment where humans and nature coexist and thrive. Everyone has a place at the table. I'm going to share a quick video right now by Dr. Will Tuttle.
All right, so yes, I'm basically here to give good news. The basic understanding that I'd like to share is that all of us as human beings have been given a wonderful gift. We've been given the gift of a physical body that does not require any animals to suffer to get all the nutrients that we need to be healthy and to thrive and to celebrate our lives on this beautiful planet. So that's the good news. The difficulty is that we've all been born into a culture where from the time we're little infants, we've been compelled to sit down and participate in meals where we're eating the flesh and secretions of terribly abused animals. And this wounds us at a very deep level. So I'm talking basically about the wounding that has happened to us as human beings growing up in a culture that's organized at its core around herding animals. Society. And one of the main points I want to be making here today is how everything we've been talking about, I've been here now for I got here yesterday evening, about GMOs, about the war machine, all these different things, how it has its roots, all of these things have their roots in animal agriculture. It's very important for us to make these connections, because if we don't, we'll be never getting to the root of the problems that we're having. If we don't get to the root of them, it's like Henry David Thoreau said, there's thousands hacking at the branches of evil for every one who's striking at the root. How many of you, just so I have a feeling, have read the word Stop? Anybody? Yeah, a few of you. I see a few hands waving. That's good. All right. So I'd like to talk a little bit about health. And the basic idea, as we can see here, we have physical health, which is what most of us are thinking about, the health of our physical bodies. And that's what when we talk about the real truth about health, we're talking about the health of our physical bodies. But I don't want to just stop there. I want to include also environmental health. And I don't want to stop there. I want to also include cultural health, because these are the three outer dimensions of health that are all interconnected. We cannot have a healthy physical body if the food is genetically engineered and polluted, and there's toxic water and air and soil and so forth. We all are aware of that. It's also important for us to live in a society that is healthy, that basically has justice and freedom and so forth. So it's very important to understand how these are interconnected. When we eat food that is toxic, we take drugs to treat the diseases that we get, like diabetes and so forth, and then we urinate those drugs back into the ecosystem. They come back into us again. So there's all these feedbacks that are connected in countless ways between these three outer dimensions of health. But in order to be healthy, we also have to have psychological health and spiritual or ethical health. And the thing to really understand, the key is that these are all interconnected. Every one is interconnected with every other one. So I think it's really important for us to get beyond the rather short-sighted view that we only care about our own physical health, the health of our physical body. The thing to understand, what I've discovered over the last 40, I've been a vegan for 40 years, actually, and it's really great to be able to say that, because I was always 38 or 39, so I was 40, 40 years. I went vegan in 1980, and I always say the smartest thing I ever did besides marrying my wonderful wife, Madeline, was going vegan, because it really creates a foundation for health on all 5 of these levels. For all of us, each one of us really is a radiating center of influence. Each one of us is a conscious, aware individual, a being who can make our own choices. And if we're not awake, if we've been harmed and wounded, and we've had our basic wisdom shut down by eating animal foods since we were born, it's very difficult to make the connections that will allow us to create a political system, an economic system, religious educational systems that are healthy. Otherwise, we're essentially creating systems that enslave us, because the underlying behavior of our society, the core fundamental behavior of our society, is imprisoning and killing billions of animals, literally every day, if we include marine animals. So this is a massive system of destruction of life, and it harms all of us at a very deep level, much more than we're aware. So the basic idea is that animal agriculture destroys all 5 dimensions of health.
I want to share with you some of the realities that we're working with. Scientific evidence points to the fact that the healthiest diet for man is a whole food plant-based diet. It is also the healthiest and most humane for animals and the least destructive to the environment. The Earth's human population grew from 1 billion in 1800 to 7.7 billion today. And there are more than 70 billion animals are slaughtered annually for human consumption, and that's not including fish. The calculations are that our oceans will be fished out by 2048. 80 to 90% of all chronic disease could be prevented by adopting a whole food plant-based diet. 99% of the 10 billion farm animals raised in the US for food annually are raised in concentrated feeding operations called CAFOs. Livestock production accounts for 70% of all agriculture land use and 30% of all the planet's land surface. Species extinction is escalating globally at rates unprecedented in human history, and the rate of accelerating with grave impacts on people. 1 million species are threatened by extinction unless local and global changes occur to protect these species. Animal agriculture creates more greenhouse gas, including carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide than all of the transportation industry combined. 9 million tons of animal waste are produced annually, causing toxic runoff, ocean dead zones, and pollution. And meat production is the leading cause of deforestation and 90% of the Amazon production. Dr. Richard Oppenlander of Food Choices and Stability states, our collective choices of food as they involve animal raising and eating livestock and harvesting fish is the single largest contributing sector for global depletion. Our combined demand for consumption of animals are more responsible than any other for insufficient agricultural land use, the depletion of our ocean, climate change, pollution, increased risk for the 4 most causing diseases and the 5 most common causes of cancer, increased healthcare costs and loss of productivity, depletion and use of fresh water, loss of biodiversity, and the prevalence of world hunger. We talk about one of the common myths about a plant-based diet is protein. As you can see in this slide, you get plenty of protein, especially when you only need 56 grams of protein a day for men and 46 for women. You can see that protein is available in all plant foods, and by combining a wide range of plant foods, everyone gets sufficient protein on a daily basis. And that's one of the biggest questions that we're asked. An example of this is 100 grams of beef versus 100 grams of beans. 100 grams of beans is equivalent to 22 grams of protein, and so is beans and beef. Although there's no fiber in beef, 15 grams of fiber for beans. Beef is 1.9 milligrams of iron compared to 5 milligrams of iron for beans, 16 milligrams of calcium versus 123 milligrams of calcium, 16 milligrams of magnesium versus 171 milligrams, and beef wins out in the cholesterol with 74 milligrams of cholesterol versus 0 in beans. It costs $3 per 100 grams for this beef and 50 cents to produce the beans. And the beef uses 1,480 liters of water to produce that 100 grams of beef, and where it only takes 103 liters of water to produce the beans. So those are some of the facts that we're working with. So I'm going to turn it over to Janet, and she's going to talk about some of the enduring principles that all faith groups in the world kind of abide by, and where we sit in those settings.
Hi, everybody. Some of you may know of enduring principles, and some churches and spiritual groups adopt these just to give guidelines and practices. It helps to, they're acknowledged by many religious groups, and they guide our thoughts, actions, and values in promotion of well-being for creation, for humans and all of creation. Each principle can stand alone, but we often find the meanings overlap within them as we discuss them in relation to spirituality and our food choices. So we're going to go on and learn a little bit more about these topics. We'll be discussing and evaluating how our food choices and practices relate to these principles. And along with our own personal experiences, we may quote other individuals, some environmentalists, and some faith group leaders who have influenced our thoughts in relationship to spiritual practice. We value scientific studies, books, documentaries, and song, as we've shared the song with you at the beginning. So if we list these, there are 9 common enduring principles. The first one, grace and generosity. The second, sacredness of creation. The third, continuing revelation. Fourth, worth of all. Number 5, all are called. Number 6, responsible choices. Number 7, the pursuit of peace. Number 8, unity and diversity. And number 9, blessings of community. So if we take each one of these separately, we're going to dig a little deeper into them. So God's grace is generous and unconditional. We have been given this gift of love and light, along with many gifts, talents, and creative abilities to serve creation. God's grace is the first love. It is available to all creatures. God's grace increases our capacity to awaken in consciousness and to continuously grow to recognize the blessedness of others and all of creation. And this is a quote taken from Henry Nouwen, who is a writer and theologian. By loving ourselves, adopting wise stewardship principles, and following a whole food plant-based diet and lifestyle, we realize that our physical blessings turned into spiritual blessings. With a focus on gratitude for God's gift of loving us, we're more prepared to generously share the good news and awareness with others, that all may be able to make informed decisions and choices. We discovered that our bodies have the innate ability to heal if given the right fuel. A whole food plant-based diet is the only diet ever scientifically proven to not only prevent, but to reverse many of the chronic diseases we all know about, including heart disease, many cancers, type 2 diabetes, arthritis, and others. And we have learned there's a connection to chronic inflammation when consuming animal-based foods. A standard American diet, very heavy in salt, fat, sugar, meat, and dairy products, are strongly linked to chronic disease. And many scientific studies have confirmed this. The World Health Organization has publicly shared that processed meats are indeed class 1 carcinogens, and unprocessed meats are probable carcinogens. So giving material goods is one form that we think of when we think generosity, but one can extend an attitude of generosity into one's behavior in all aspects. So being kind, attentive, honest in dealing with others, this does not require material wealth, but just God's grace and pure generosity. Going on to the second principle, we are looking at sacredness of creation. So divine purpose is in every part of creation. Humanity, animals, and the planet are sacred gifts from God and should be cherished and protected. The power to create or destroy reminds us of the extreme vulnerability that all life has. We need to join with God as wise stewards of care and hope for all creation. This is a little quote, or a small poem actually, from Elizabeth Barrett Browning, which I liked. It is, "Earth is crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God, but only he who sees takes off his shoes." Have we mindlessly and unconsciously closed our eyes and minds to the evidence that greed and abuse are quickly catapulting us into loss and extinction? Veganism itself is a word grounded in compassion and a state of mind, with a focus on treating animals as beings instead of just objects. You know, we love our pets and we honor them as family members, and all others as commodities, it seems, raised in cruel conditions and sold by the pound. Have we become so comfortably unaware in our current practices and not take responsibility for this damage being done? There's a little video we wanted to share. It's called A Prayer for Compassion. And it's actually a trailer of a documentary. It's only a couple of minutes long. And I would recommend you looking, if you can, at the entire documentary. But we're going to show you this little trailer, which kind of encompasses what we're talking about.
How can we expect ourselves to have lives of joy and freedom and spiritual clarity when we are sowing the seeds of the opposite of that?
It's almost like some mad scientist, like Satan himself, designed these systems that are being used now to raise animals. It is absolute insanity.
I don't get how you can love everything Jesus says and then participate in a mechanized system of mass slaughter that involves pain beyond your wildest imagination.
Even keeping quiet and silent about the violence, you are part of that violence.
There's another passage in the Quran that says that because of the wrongs of humanity, there has been much corruption seen in the oceans and on land.
So for a few moments in which we're enjoying what is really just a palate preference, we're taking what is most essential to animals, their very lives. And that's the opposite of compassion, it seems to me.
We are ashamed of our ancestors who owned slaves. We are ashamed of our ancestors who believed in segregation. So too, our grandchildren will be ashamed of what we allowed to happen on our watch. Each of us has to ask ourselves a spiritual question. What side do I want to tell my grandchildren I was on? Was I on the side of mercy and compassion, or was I on the blind side that helped to perpetuate suffering?
There are many documentaries similar to this one. Earthlings, I wanted them to come to my mind. There are, Dominion is another one. You know, there are a lot of, and they're very difficult to watch, but they do tell the tale. A lot of slaughterhouses and CAFOs and all the production that goes on behind closed doors is often put out of our mind. So these help to bring them to the forefront of the actual happenings that are really going on within these institutions. So we wanted to look at a few of the things that really are drawbacks to keeping our creation sacred. So the first one that we look at is industry. Pharmaceuticals fits in there, the medical practices of disease management rather than prevention and curing or preventing. And all of these have a financial component to them, which is often at the forefront of their being, rather than for health prevention and health means. Animal agriculture's cruelty to animals in the production of food, not to mention its effect on global warming. wasteful practices in food consumption that we all do. Apparently, I've read that there is about a third of the food that's produced is actually wasted, whether it's vegetables or meat. So we need to be very mindful of that practice. Also, addictive behaviors of food consumption. You know, we know that a lot of the sugars and fats and the foods that are very common to most people can be quite addictive in nature, and we keep coming back to them. The traditions which condone and promote unhealthy foods are out there, and we've all been attached to those traditions. We also deal with media and the media's role in normalizing unhealthy eating practices around the consumption of meat and dairy. These condition us to believe that these things are normal, when actually the opposite is true. So continuing revelation is the next principle that we're going to look at. Believing in a loving God who continues to inspire, guide, and direct humankind, many faith-based individuals and groups seek ongoing guidance. A close relationship with a living God requires not only our listening, but to also acting upon revelation and inspiration that we receive. Being willing to make change is important. Once seeing and learning new direction, the next step is to take action. It's difficult to unsee or unknow once the bridge of understanding is crossed. Sometimes making changes may seem uncomfortable or out of the norm. Spiritual direction may become evident through various spiritual practices such as prayer, meditation, taking part in sacraments that help to bridge the gap to the spirit and open our hearts to a more greater sense of loving. Revelatory insight into how God loves all creation and how we should consider its sacredness, again, helps to make our decisions easier to adopt and accept, and love ourselves enough to make healthier choices. These provide a strong and secure why. When making any change, it helps to solidify that decision and to make it feel true and just. Some of our scriptures provide direction. So this is ongoing in many institutions and many churches that have prophetic discussions in scriptures that are ongoing. So we look back at some of them in the Bible. In Genesis, we read, "And God said, behold, I've given you every herb bearing seed which is on the face of the earth, and every tree in that which is fruit yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat." From the Doctrine and Covenants, which is a scripture within the community of Christ, there is a chapter 89, or section 89 is, "Again, verily I say unto you, all wholesome herbs God hath ordained for the constitution, nature, and use of man. Every herb in the season thereof, every fruit in the season thereof, all these to be used with prudence and thanksgiving. Yea, flesh also of the beasts and of the fowls of the air I have ordained for the use of man. Nevertheless, they are to be used sparingly, and it is pleasing to me they should be used only in times of winter, extreme hunger, or of cold or famine." We hear from Albert Einstein, "Nothing will benefit human health and increase chances for survival on the earth as much as a vegetarian diet." Another section, Doctrine and Covenants, section 163, given by Steve Veazey, President and Prophet of the Community of Christ. "The eternal Creator weeps for the poor, displaced, mistreated, and diseased of the world because of the unnecessary suffering. Such conditions are not God's will. Open your ears to hear the pleading of mothers and fathers in all nations who desperately seek a future of hope for their children. Do not turn away from them, for in their welfare lies your welfare. The earth, lovingly created as an environment for life to flourish, shudders in distress because creation's natural and living systems are being exhausted from carrying the burden of human greed and conflict. Humankind must awaken from its illusion of independence and unrestrained consumption. Going on to the worth of all. God's desire is for all creation to experience wholeness of body, mind, and spirit. Viewing humankind as having equal worth, we need to seek to uphold and restore the worth of all, challenging unjust systems that diminish human worth. Like humans, animals are expressions of God's universal love and intelligence. They yearn for satisfaction of their drives and desires, to avoid pain and suffering, and they are profoundly mysterious. In animals, we see cooperation, mutual aid, celebration, much like the human counterparts. Animals experience a wide range of feelings, including physical and psychological abuse, when confined or mistreated. There is really no such thing as humane killing. The most universal spiritual teaching found cross-culturally to virtually all the world's religious traditions is based on the truth of our interconnection. It is presented both positively in what we refer to as the Golden Rule, that is, to do unto others as we would have them do unto us, or more neutrally as the law of cause and effect, that whatever we do to others will rebound to us. Simply stated, we can never expect to be happy if we cause suffering to others, to be free if we confine others, or to have peace if we are violent to others and cause them to be afraid. As we free others, we become free. As we love others, we are loved. As we encourage others, we are encouraged. As we bless others, we are blessed. As we bring joy to others, we find joy and healing in our lives. And this is from Dr. Will Tuttle, who we've already seen, who wrote The World Peace Diet. And this is from his book. Next, we're going to talk about all being called. God graciously gives people gifts and opportunities to do good and share in God's purposes. All humans have the right and the responsibility to take a stand against injustice, abuse, and oppression in order to promote personal health, animal welfare, and the future of the planet. As we become increasingly aware of how factory farm meat consumption impacts our planet, animal well-being, and our own health, more and more people are seeing the benefits of transitioning to a plant-based diet. Conversation among faith groups is leaning into this direction as various religious groups are seeing the moral imperative and are stepping up as allies in the fight against factory farming and climate change. Faith groups have been engaged in movements toward fully plant-based diets. Having support of a church, mosque, temple, or other house of worship can stimulate friendly debate and help to encourage people and others to support and cut down their meat intake. Jim's going to provide us with a few examples. We found this very interesting as we looked this information up about what's happening within other faiths.
In June this year, the world's first vegan Jewish center opened in London. The center aims to service an ever-increasing demand for an interest in Jewish veganism. While 24 years ago, dozens of rabbis from around the world signed a declaration calling on Jewish people to adopt a plant-based diet. Earlier this year, there was mounting pressure on Pope Francis from the Roman Catholic Church to adopt a plant-based diet for Lent after he said, "It is contrary to human dignity to cause animals to suffer or die needlessly." And for several years already, a growing number of Muslims have celebrated Veganadan, or Green Ramadan, wherein observers adopt a 100% plant-based diet for the 4 weeks of Ramadan, the holy month of the Islamic calendar, characterized by daily fasting, prayer, reflection, and community. Another example of this movement, of this gaining movement, is called Living Change, an international multi-faith initiative which helps people representing diverse traditions change their consumption habits in response to climate change. And this fall, religious and spiritual groups around the world will be holding plant-based suppers where members can talk about how their traditions relate to the challenges of climate change and what they can do. The Hindu American Foundation has made a commitment to serve 100% vegetarian meals at all its events and to make 30% of its dishes vegan. And they said, in doing this, we can even more deeply apply the precept of ahimsa, a Hindu tradition of nonviolence and compassion in our lives, while simultaneously helping to prevent climate change. A Jewish ecological coalition in Austria under Rabbi Jonathan Karen Black says he's committed to make at least half of his meals vegetarian and eat meat only one day a week. While Sister Christine Tomey, a Dominican sister based in Iowa, became vegetarian 6 years ago. She says, what began as a Lenten commitment, a common Catholic practice of abstaining from something during the 40 days leading up to Easter, has become an integral to my spiritual practice. At first, my primary motivation was mindfulness of my brothers and sisters who go hungry. But the more I learned about the social environment impact of the meat production in the US, the deeper commitment became. So we're seeing more and more faith groups are beginning to look at the benefits of a plant-based lifestyle, not only for the health, but for also the health of the planet and for increased compassion to those animals. The Dalai Lama states, the planet does not need more successful people. The planet desperately needs more peacemakers, healers, restorers, storytellers, and lovers of all kinds.
So we go on to responsible choices. We are called to make responsible choices within the circumstances of our lives that contribute to the purpose of God and well-being of creation. We do have choices. Human choices contribute to positive or negative outcomes for our own lives, animals, and the planet. God wants our lives to overflow with choosing mercy, love, and compassion, the marks of his kingdom. And this is found in Matthew. We have another short video for you. It's called Life is a Walking. They're going to talk about choices and compassion and consequences.
I am good buffalo eagle. Hear my words. The Creator gave all two-legged beings a sacred gift. We call this the gift of choice. Regardless of where we are born, all come to earth with this gift. Along with this gift of choice, all two-legged beings have a sense of knowing right from wrong, from the one who stands within. Therefore, the gift of choice allows us to choose knowingly. My Pauline, the woman of my heart, states that in her Navajo language, life is a walking, a journey. So if life upon Mother Earth is a journey, there are two ways to walk. By applying the gift of choice, we can choose to walk forward or we can choose to walk backwards. Because we choose knowingly, with every step we take forward or backward, we are accountable. Because we are accountable, there are consequences. Consequences, however, are not chosen. They might be delayed, but by and by, they will come. Forward-walking choices are rewarded with consequences that light the way to peace, happiness, joy, comfort, knowledge, and wisdom. Backward-walking choices bring the two-legged beings consequences of misery, despair, and darkness. At the end of our lives, when our bodies are about to be laid in Mother Earth, we will know for ourselves whether we are a two-legged being full of light or a two-legged being full of darkness. At that time, we cannot turn around and point a finger accusingly in the air. We will know because we are the ones who chose to walk forward toward the light or backwards toward darkness. Hear my words. Don't believe the dark whisperings that invite you to walk backwards. At any time in your life, you have the power to turn forward. We extend an invitation to all to utilize the power of the gift of choice, which will teach us the forward walkings that will bring peace. Let's look at the present and with anticipation into the future at what we can become. A two-legged being full of light. I am good Buffalo Eagle, and I have spoken.
Native spirituality gives us a lot of teaching and a lot to think about in such a profound way. Everywhere you turn, a new authority may be pressing their point on what you must do to become more sustainable. You might think you're doing your part. You recycle, you change out your light bulbs, you buy local. Unfortunately, discussions on this topic overlook one simple yet important fact. What most of us choose to eat is killing the planet. Why do we rarely hear about sustainability efforts that focus on food choice? Perhaps it's not convenient. The prevailing culture, social, and political influences throughout the world are linked to the current food production systems. Most people are not aware or informed of some of these alarming truths. This information comes from Dr. Richard Oppenlander, who is an environmentalist who has written a book called Food Choices and Sustainability. Pursuit of peace. God wants shalom, reconciliation, well-being, wholeness, and peace for all of creation. To achieve peace, it seems we must pay close attention to justice within relationships and the environment, which involves compassion and love. Compassion is a breakdown of all barriers between us, a heart-to-heart bonding. Your pain is my pain and is shared and mingled between us. We are thus given the chance to laugh and cry together, to learn from each other, and to have more compassion for one another. This is a quote from Chloe Zhao, actress from the movie Nomadland, and I liked what she had to say about compassion. As we open our hearts to suffering and injustice, decisions to choose wisely are influenced by knowing, developing, acting upon, and celebrating more compassionate choices for promotion of justice and peace. As our hearts open to deeper understanding, our circle of compassion naturally enlarges and spontaneously begins to include more and more others, not just our own tribe, nation, sect, or race, but all humans, and not just humans, but other mammals, birds, fish, forests, and the whole beautiful interwoven tapestry of living, pulsing creation. All beings, all of us. When we are drawn towards a plant-based way of eating, it is no way a limitation on us. Rather, it is the harmonious fulfillment of our inner seeing. This is simply awareness and expression of our sense of interconnectedness, love and compassion, which unfailingly allows seeing beings rather than things when we look at our neighbors. And this is from Dr. Will Tuttle. We must look at unity and diversity. And as a group, as communities, and participants in these organizations, we need to appreciate the differences that promote and invoke cooperation in finding solutions that benefit the whole. Dr. T. Colin Campbell is a doctor of science who developed the term whole through his research in a whole food plant-based way of eating. He talks about the theory of reductionism. Eating plants in their entirety as God made them allows all the diverse elements to synchronistically work together to promote health. If we reduce, separate, or process these whole foods into diverse parts, the power and the benefit is diminished, lost, or become toxic. And unity in diversity is healing. Dr. Will Bulsiewicz, a gastroenterologist, explains that the more diverse our diets are in eating various whole plant foods, the more good gut bacteria we produce, and the greater our good response to promote healthy immune responses that augment our health and prevent illness. Native spirituality tells the story of the three sisters in the garden. They are corn, squash, and beans. They're all plants, but they have diverse natures. They have different nutrients and strengths that benefit one another and help each other grow more productively. Beans provide the nitrogen that the corn requires. Beans need a pole, and the corn gives them that. Squash leaves provide shade, which helps to conserve moisture in the soil. Humans and animals connect to the earth through nourishment from these plants. Everyone and everything is connected. We have lessons that we can learn from nature all the time. Another one is about beans. A nutrient-dense plant food is often seen in the four colors of humanity: red, yellow, black, and white. They not only look different, but they grow differently. One needs more moisture, one can survive in drought. All come in different sizes, shapes, colors, and nutrients, and each makes a contribution in various ways and strengths, synchronizing their elements to provide optimal health. Humans are similar. All bring various thoughts, strengths, and weaknesses to the table, and yet find commonality and strengthen the whole because of their diversity. We're all called to create communities of peace in our families, in our congregations, across villages and tribes and nations and creation. Communities need to uphold the worth of all, including the poor, the marginalized, and those that are most vulnerable. Examining and discovering how food affects us, how it's grown, how farming has affected animals and the planet, has really opened our eyes and hearts to the interconnections present on the planet. Through Dan Buettner's research, he did research for a magazine. He's called, and he researched the blue zones. They are 6 parts of the world where people live the longest, healthiest lives. We've realized the benefit of a cooperative community to promote health and well-being. They value the condition of something called ikigai. This is a Japanese term meaning a reason to be, or in other words, living according to one's dreams. These communities project purposeful, harmonious groups that value all members, their giftedness, wisdom, happiness, and sense of purpose. The characteristics of these communities have several things in common, even though they are in various parts of the world. So the 4 things they have in common are, number 1, predominantly a plant-based diet. They all eat beans. Being active and being involved in activities of daily living, walking, gardening, etc. The 3rd one that is common is they do meditation and mindfulness practices to relieve stress and to promote a sense of spirit. And number 4, a sense of love and strong connection in community, valuing all ages, seeking purpose, fulfillment, and joy. And since these investigations from Dan Buettner have happened, there are projects throughout the US and Canada now where various cities are taking on the task of trying to promote similar environments within cities to mimic the benefit that the blue zones have shown. We are grateful for the knowledge we have acquired about a whole food plant-based lifestyle and the gift of health that we received, without which our lives may have taken a whole different turn. As an RN, I've seen and cared for those suffering from common chronic foodborne illnesses. And we all know those who are struggling with chronic disease, chronic pain, obesity, sedentary, and isolated lives. And we know now that many of these hardships can be avoided. We chose to share this knowledge with as many who would listen, and we're grateful for the community that we have here. Thankful for you that join us, and for the positive results that happen when people develop this ability to adopt a whole food plant-based lifestyle. It seems to us, and I've always liked this statement, and I say it several times over again, it's predictable and profound if we would just open our hearts to it and take it in. Learning of the interconnectedness that our dietary choices make for ourselves, others, animals, and the planet, we cannot deny the need for all to be more active, less complacent, and more diligent towards being better stewards for all creation. Change isn't always easy. It's okay to ask some hard questions that pertain to what it will take for us as a community to make a needed change. Science will guide us, and God will guide us. And may we be delighted as we open the gifts that God has for us. Gifts of answers that will direct us in promotion and celebration of communities of justice, peace, hope, and joy, all initiated and sustained by love and compassion. It is our hope that peace, justice, and health will be initiated by every mindful forkful that nourishes your body and your soul. We're going to close with a hymn and a prayer following the hymn.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God our Creator. We are family. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Prayer for the earth. O God, let us guard this fair earth, which you have granted us in your bounty, and let us share the plenty you have provided. Let us not hoard our crops unto ourselves, but let our humanity, all of humanity, reap the fruits of our sowing. Let us permit no one to dwell in pain and hunger and starvation. O God, let us respect the seas, the soil, and the skies, and help us to see the Spirit in all things. Let us learn from those nations who we have spurned. Let us carefully protect all your creation and not continue in our wanton ways of horrible destruction. Let us unite one humankind in peace, that we may cherish what we have and are, and yet abide in our love of this, our planet. O God, help us to recognize the wasteful practices that have been an insult to this earth. Let us walk ever with heartfelt gratitude for this wondrous world, that gift which you have given us in your infinite love. Amen. So that's our presentation, folks. We'll open up for discussion, and you can either direct it through the chat or raise hands, and Troy will recognize you. Any questions, comments?
Thank you, Jim and Janet. I found that really interesting. I guess the interconnected piece is something that when you really take a step back and start to think about it, you really do see how everything is truly connected in terms of a mind, body, and soul. I know in some of my own research, I've kind of come across different practices around the world. One of them, kind of being Ayurveda. And I know in the last couple of weeks, we've had some people join from India, which was really cool. And Ayurveda, it comes from India. And it's really looking at, from my understanding, like food as properties, right? And how different food is specific medicine for your body. And then the connection between that and spirituality, and how that runs alongside with yoga and the mindfulness piece. So I think a lot of the things that you were saying, Janet, about the mindfulness piece and that really resonated with me. And then when you connect it back to like the rest of the planet, whether it's deforestation or, you know, animal welfare. It's just all very connected. So I thought that was really cool. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Yeah.
We are super connected, this world. Look at this community.
Yeah, I found the part about, it was Dan Buettner did the research for the National Geographic. And so, you know, I've read a lot of his work and watched some of his videos and what he's been doing. And it's really exciting, the things that they're able to do. And there's several cities now, several major cities that have tried to adopt many things, like where they put their parks, how they do gardening, how they make it so that people don't have to drive, they can bike and they can walk, and it's how the community comes together. And I found it really interesting to look at all that and how, you know, each city is now being assessed, you know, and they can apply if they want to be worked with. So Dan Buettner and his team would actually go in to a city and work with the officials, because it takes the government, it takes the higher ups in order to make a lot of that kind of stuff happen.
To declare their city to be a blue zone.
Mm-hmm. And they would be declared a blue zone. So with all those benefits that accompany that, you know, and so I found that interesting. Found it also interesting with the different investigation into various religions and the type of things that they're attempting to adopt and promote within their community. So, you know, sometimes it's just people don't know or they're not aware. And so to hear that those groups are working towards a greater sense of awareness and teaching people more about it, because, you know, as the normal is something totally different from a plant-based diet, really, and what that does for people. So unless they become aware and they learn a little bit more about it, you know, it's not what you hear every day on the commercials on TV. It's not what you see when you go downtown. It's the lineups at Tim Hortons and McDonald's are huge. So it's not the norm. And so to create awareness, I think, is the biggest thing, and help people make conscious decisions about what they do with their life and the changes that they want to make. And it's all about knowing. That's a big part of it.
We went for a walk yesterday morning, our normal walk, and John was getting a bit discouraged. Seeing how people who have called us and talked to us about their health and who saw results and then all of a sudden fall off the wagon, if you will, and we were bemoaning the fact that some of those people are still sick and could be feeling so much better. We were bemoaning the fact that all the TV you watch, no one even talking about climate change, no one is talking about the single activity that's the most contributing to our climate issues, being animal agriculture. No one seems to be addressing it. And when we came home, we were working on this presentation, and then the article that I read from what some of the other church groups are doing. It says religious groups are giving plant-based eating a boost, and this was in Forbes magazine, which is a major magazine, and it was so nice to see, and it's kind of encouraged us to move on. And to continue to do this kind of work that we're doing, and hoping that people will adopt this lifestyle and change their lives, because it's changed ours.
I just wanted to say about exercise, because my husband has exercised for months and months walking in our neighborhood in the subdivision. And the last few days, I've started to ride my bicycle with him, and I'm amazed how everyone will, wave to you or say good morning, and they smile and they're happy, they're upbeat. that it's so neat seeing that as people are out walking, getting fresh air and exercise. And I've really enjoyed it.
We've noticed that a lot more, even with COVID. You know, people are out walking because it's something they can do. And even though you're at a distance, you know, people will talk. They will talk to you and visit. And so it's been, we've noticed that too. It's kind of nice.
We attended a rally in downtown Guelph, Ontario today about in response to the IPC report, the red alert here. And it was interesting that there was so many there's so many speeches talked about the use of water and plant-based diet. And it was reiterating what you were saying tonight, a lot of it. And I was like, well, there should have been a lot more people there. There weren't very many people there, but at least there were a lot of kids who were interested in writing messages on the sidewalk, etc. So it was really neat.
That's good to hear.
I hope that you folks will share this presentation when it comes out on Facebook.
Speaking back to Dorothy, Guelph is a very, I think, mindful towards plant-based eating, and even in their restaurants and different places that are kind of supporting, you know, contributing to having more options for people that don't eat meat. So I think that's good, and just out there more so than a lot. We're not seeing a lot of places where we are that provide, other than the plant-based burgers and the fast food chains and that type of thing. But you know, it's coming. It's coming.
But we're so good at creating stuff on our own. Like it's just so easy. Once your pantry is set up for plant-based living, sometimes it's just as quick to cook our own meal, or freeze it, and it's so simple, and
it probably tastes better than what you can get anywhere else in a restaurant with the types of foods that you're using. And it's nice the summertime now, like we're just starting to pick tomatoes and zucchini and get the greens and different things that are more prevalent and more present now.
And reds.
The reds and greens. Yeah. So it's a good time of year to stock up. Fill your freezer with all that kind of stuff. I know this, we've been trying to empty ours out so that we can have room, because we always do tomatoes and applesauce and, beets and different things and peppers. And so it's nice to have that in the freezer for the winter coming.
When you can buy things by the case, even at grocery stores, to take advantage of it and freeze it. It lasts you all year. We didn't buy canned tomatoes, and we just bought the Romo tomatoes in the grocery stores, and they were terrific because the ones we grew didn't grow very well, and so we did that, and we had tomatoes all year, and we use a lot of tomatoes as our base for eating. Is there anything that you want us to address in upcoming sessions? We can go over all of the other stuff that we've done. We've got tons of slides and presentations, but if there's anything specific that you want to see, please let us know, and we'll be happy to share it.
Yeah, I remember when I started on this, there were a lot of spices and things that I was not familiar with. And I just gradually added more till I had quite an abundance. And that makes a big difference, which is something I didn't have before. But it just makes all your food more tasty and everything. And I also use the bulk store a lot to buy my things that I needed to add. Wasn't expensive at all.
No.
There's even, I think I posted it on the Facebook, Plant-Based Nutrition Facebook page, Plant-Based Nutrition 101, which I would encourage you all to join. I think I did post on there not long ago the spice chart, where you can actually do take some of those individual spices and make up Italian spice blend, a Thai blend, different blends that are easy and handy to pull out and to put into soups and whatever you're making.
If any of you have a really cool recipe that you want to share next time, bring it along and share it with us too.
And if you join Plant-Based Nutrition 101, you can post up any recipes that you're doing, or just feel free to join in and post some stuff, or ask questions, or just, sometimes there's good conversations that happen.
Yeah, that's Plant-Based Nutrition 101 Facebook group.
There's a lot of plant-based Facebook groups. The Forks Over Knives one is really good. You may really enjoy, and a lot of good information gets discussed there, and people post recipes and share their stories, and sometimes just hearing people's stories, it's motivating to keep you excited about what you're doing, and it's nice to see.
Yeah, a lot of people share difficulties they're having, and people build each other up, which is nice too.
The World Peace Diet is the book that Dr. Will Tuttle wrote, and it's worth reading.
I think it's also an audio book too, so good to listen to if you're driving or something like that.
It is, yeah. And the book that we reference from Dr. Richard Openlander is Food Choices and Sustainability, I think is the title of his book.
So folks, please keep in touch with us. If you're in our area, come and see us. We would love to start entertaining people again too, cooking some meals together and that type of thing. We have a plant-based couple who have been on the lifestyle for about the last 8 or 9 years, and she's been cleared of her cancer. She had breast cancer, and so we went over to their place a couple of weeks ago, and they made us some pizzas in their pizza oven with some vegan pizza recipes, and they were just phenomenal. Kind of ate too much, but anyway, it was so much fun to share recipes and to share commonality with people, especially when you're just not, you have something in common that is giving you life, and it's going to be nice to be able to be with people to share that too, not just on this. So Troy, if that's okay, we'll sign off and thank everyone for coming.